everyone, welcome to Thread Local. So today we'll discuss how to create a thread in Java. So Java threads are objects like any other kind of Java objects. Like if we have string as an object or any other object which we will define. So like that, thread is also an object. And threads are instance of class java.lang.thread. So if we have to define a thread, then what we can do is we can simply write thread equal to new thread, where this thread is actually java.lang.thread class. Now the question is that how we can start this thread. We can start this thread by calling thread.start method. Then the thread will start running. But what it will run, what task it will perform, that we have to define in a method called public void run. And inside that, whatever code you will write, that will be the task for the thread. You can write any code here, or maybe you can call any other method also. All this will be considered as the task for this thread. Now, if you do a thread equal to new thread and do a thread.start, you will not see any output. Because by default, inside this thread class, the run method will be empty. So now we will see how properly we can define a thread and its task. So there are two ways you can define a thread. One is by extending the thread class. This is the thread class which we just seen. Another thing is by implementing runnable interface. By extending the thread class, how you can define a thread? You can simply create a class and then you can extend the thread class. At the moment you will extend the thread class, it will force you to override the method public void run. And inside that method, whatever code you will write, that will be the task for the thread. Now what you have to do is, you have to create an object out of this class and then you have to do a mythread.start. Then it will start executing and whatever is present in the run method, it will be the output. Now another way to implement this thread is by implementing runnable interface. So what is runnable interface? Runnable interface is an interface which comes under java.lang.runnable, and here only one method is defined, that is public void run. So whenever any class will implement this runnable interface, then by default you have to implement this method public void run. And here also you can write some code which will be the task for the thread. Then you can do one thing, you can write runnable equal to new myRunnable. That means you are creating an object of type runnable, and you can create a thread class and you can assign this runnable object into the threads constructor. Means you are creating a thread and you are assigning a work for it. So in previous example you have seen we have used the default constructor where there is no parameter we have assigned. But now we are creating the thread object where we are passing the runnable object, because this runnable holds the work for this thread. Now if we do a thread.start, it will print myRunnable running, because this is the task and this is the worker. So I am assigning the task to a worker and it is doing the duty. Now let's do some hands-on and we can gather more information. So here I have defined one class called myThread and I have just defined the main method. So first thing we will show is like how to create a thread out of it by extending the thread class. So as you can see here, this thread class is java.lang.thread. Okay. Now, as we have extended the thread class, that means we have to override the run method. Okay. And we can assign some work to it. So that is maybe, so I can write some name. Then we can create a thread empty equal to new my thread. And if we do empty dot start, then this thread will be started. And if we run it, we can see the output as I am running. Now, how we can use the runnable interface to create the thread? So what we can do is, instead of this, we can implements runnable. Okay. So when I just implement the runnable thing, then that time, if we are creating this thread, so what we have to do is, we can create this object as the runnable, right? Now we can create a thread t1 equal to new thread, and there we can pass this empty as the runnable object. So here if you check, it is taking the runnable as the argument. Okay. Now if you do a t1 dot start, then it will start running the thread. I am running. Now we can create another thread also, t2, and there also we can assign the same runnable object. Means the work for both of them is same now. Then if we run, we can get 2 I am running. Okay. Now we can check like which thread is doing which part. So for that purpose, in the thread constructor, you can pass a parameter as thread name also. So let's give it a name as thread1, and it is as a thread2. Now the question is that how we will segregate, like which one is running which one. So for that purpose, we can use a thread class method name, which is thread dot current thread dot get name. So it will give us the name of the thread. Okay. So now if you run here by applying some space here, so you can see thread 1 I am running, thread 2 I am running. Now instead of this, we can create one for loop. Int I equal to 0, I less than equal to 1000, and I plus plus. Now inside this, we will print this part. I am running, and after that maybe you can print this number. Okay. Now if you run this one, let's see what will happen. So what we can see is thread 1 is saying I am running, thread 2 is saying I am running 0, thread 1 is saying I am running 1, thread 2 is saying 1. And after that 1 only is running, then we can see somewhere 2 is running, then somewhere 2 is running. So what we can see is, this is the beauty about thread. Both of the thread is working, and whatever task they have assigned, they will complete. But the order is not maintained here, and order is not important also. So they both started the work, but if you see here, whenever one you will find, they are maintaining the sequence, means 0, then 1, then 2. That order not breaked. But when 1 is running and when 2 is running, that part is not in a sequence. So if you take a less number, maybe 10 or something, maybe that time it can be maintained. Okay. Here also it is not maintained. Here thread 2 started, but if you run again, maybe the output will be different, right? So every time if you run, you can see different output. So that means it is assigned the work, it will do the work, but it is not guaranteed in which order they will do. Now the question is that which technique to choose, extending thread class or using runnable. So if a class extend the thread class, that means that class cannot extend any other class, right? Means one class can only extend one class. So if I have some requirement where I need to extend any other class for my design perspective view, then we can't use this one, because to act it as a thread, I have already used this option like extending the thread class. In case of Runnable, that is not the case because you can implement any number of interface. Second thing is, in case of Runnable, task can worker you are segregating, and we can assign different tasks to same worker. So when we will talk about thread pool, which is a like pool of thread where we have ready-made threads available according to the thread pool size. So there, if you are creating some task as a runnable, then you can assign this task to any thread which is present in the pool as available. So if your task and the worker is segregated, then it is much and more flexible. So you can define one task and that task can be used by n number of threads, or one single thread can execute n number of tasks also. So this flexibility is here. So this is all about how you can create thread in Java. So as long as we will go next, we can see a lot of other concepts also. Thanks for watching.